Hi, my name is Amanda De Silva, and today I am here to talk about a growing and complex issue surrounding education, which is the privatization of education. So, what is it? Privatization is a process whereby the educational institutes owned and governed by the state or government is transferred over to private or individual entities. These may include religious institutions, private companies, and other non-government organizations. The primary aspect that led to and continues to support the privatization of the education system, especially in Australia, is the development of public-private partnerships. Although the private sector of education continues to grow today, the state school system is hindered to an extent concerning the areas of resources and funding. This is due to the providence of private education not being synchronized and thus monitored for regulatory performance. The policy area governing the issue of the privatized education system is the neoliberalism and the demise of the public education. Now, what issues are perceived to be with the current policy? The Australian Financial Review states that the privatisation of education is another neoliberal policy experiment introduced to the Australian education system. The main concern regarding the policy is the division of political parties in terms of the views they believe, present and stand for. The predominant issue of privatisation of the education system within Australia largely related to the democracy and its citizens, as it encourages young citizens in particular to gravitate towards various social and political hierarchies to which the neoliberal rationality has given rise. As a result, experts foresee the pressing need to implement the democratic control to combat the growing issue. Consequently, as citizens, it is essential that we are thoroughly aware of our duties in contribution to democratic control regarding this issue. Additionally, citizens must apprehend the significance of determining the sole purpose of a democratic government and who will benefit from its service, rather than focusing on the economic aspect concerning the market size of the government. Furthermore, the primary element of concern is more about the relationship formed between the market and the state, and less about the market and state itself. By establishing the conceptualizing the link, an improvement may be witnessed due to a broadening of based prosperity and an abundance of advantages. Now to an ethical perspective. And when we are viewing this issue from an ethical stance, it is quite discerning in such a way that private schools bear more state-of-the-art facilities as well as feasible opportunities in the school environment as opposed to public schools who may lack state resources. Thus, private schools in conjunction with the public education system is essential to make sure state schools also receive equal to more funding in order to ensure children attending state schools are not missing out on too much. What does literature say about this topic? Privatisation of schools, despite being an increasing occurrence nationwide in Australia today, is a controversial topic. David Singer, host of the television show The Drum, argues that privatisation of schools is not a real solution. He casts his opinion by stating that the coalition's education policy pushes autonomy and independence as keys to improved schools, but this privatisation plan will only help further entrench differences and halt any upward social mobility in the education system. David's statement is reflective that the governing Liberal Party in approximately 2013 began to encourage the privatised education system. Autonomy and independence are the essence to individuality, and this, in this context, clearly supports the privatised education system. In doing so, the privileged, the socially advantaged, and the so-called upper-class society is thoroughly promoted and benefits, whilst the middle-class or blue-collar workers struggle to stay afloat in providing a sustainable education for their children. The privatisation of education is also regarded as an expensive choice, as it can lead to growing costs for taxpayers and citizens. To run a school, there are a long list of requirements that need careful consideration, and especially increased costs in the process of transitioning from public to private. According to a finance blog, it is apparent that during this transition, expenses rise by approximately 60%, which puts communities at stake due to liabilities to provide for their school communities. Alternative possibilities and perspective on existing practices. As of currently, privatized educational institutes bear much more state-of-the-art facilities and opportunities for students as opposed to students attending state schools. This discrepancy of the education system should be diminished to ensure all children receive equal opportunities and facilities. It is largely perceived across a wide range of belief systems that education should be solely funded and managed by the state. However, in such a demanding society for education and achievement, that ideology is no longer feasible as very few state educational institutes are able to fund on their own. The state schools need the private sector to lend a helping hand as they bring about benefits to the educational systems. However, on the other hand, these advantages are a reflection of interests of the communities that these educational systems are located in, alongside the need for the education system to be democratically controlled. A strong persevering belief amongst the education system is that by implementing democratic control, the traditional belief among the educated is that by implementing democratic control, the traditional purposes of education as well as a sense of community creates through community building, social cohesion, and solidarity can be preserved in providing a brighter and better future for the future generations. Working together in solidarity in achieving this goal, no student is at advantage and the education system is for the best yet. Furthermore, governing bodies, authorities, and hierarchies that oversee the education system must construct, implement, and thus encourage to exercise rules and systems that clearly work towards ensuring that the privatized education system does not favor corruption, that already privileged and the significant minority. Also, an existing ideology or practice could be that by designing stronger accountability systems, the education structure undergoes quantitative and qualitative analysis to ensure the education market runs efficiently, in the interest of both public and private schools, whilst ensuring all students enrolled in both public and private schools are entitled to equal resources and facilities. Finally, to a better future, the proposal of ensuring that state schools receive equal or an increased proportion of funding, and this resource allocation is largely associated with democracy, citizenship, as well as ethics. These three elements contribute to not only a better future for the children in the education system, but also a secure educational career with an abundance of opportunities and great potential for achievement. As a democratic nation and thus governed by a democratic political hierarchy, citizens play a large role in campaigning for the equal allocation of resources and funds towards the public education sector. From an ethical point of view, injustice is evident as the allocation of funding and resources are not equitable. Hence, students enrolled in public educational institutes have much less resources, facilities, and opportunities as opposed to those studying at private educational institutes. Therefore, it is morally correct and ethically acceptable to ensure the government implements a plan to allocate an equitable proportion of funding as done for the private sector. Thank you.